Do you mind if I ask how you became homeless?
Yeah, through a divorce.
That was
I was a divorce, and
that
my
was the
wife
catalyst.
kidnapped my children from me and put them in hiding, and that broke me. Um, she also called my work and told them I was a drug addict, and my work fired me. This was all on my birthday, September 28th. I remember that one, and all hit me at one time. I got hit with a restraining order at work. Then my boss called me in and fired me. Couldn't go back to the house. I basically had my car. And then I fought hard, went to court appearances and stuff like that, and won rights to my daughters, seeing my daughters again, and then rebuilt my life. You have to have a higher power. Higher power in my case was not just God, but was my children.
Why did your wife do that?
Why? Um, um, uh, uh, to this day, I don't have many male best friends, and there's a reason for that.
Oh no.
So, um, that had happened to me twice.
With with the same girl.
Yeah. I remarried her again when we moved up here away from all the bad stuff. Unfortunately, she didn't tell me the bad stuff followed her up here, and that was the end of that one again. Um, the what broke me is actually taking my kids away and putting them in hiding. I think I could have dealt with everything else. Um, my children were always the most. Even when I was homeless, my kids now, you could even tell them they never knew I was homeless. We went camping every time Dad was visiting. So we went to Willow Creek, we went to Trinidad, we went to Patrick's Point, down south to Swimmer's Delight. They never knew I was homeless because they only see me on the weekends. And then that all changed. I got a nice job helping people. Redwood Community Action Agency.
That's what pulled you out.
Yeah, they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself and put me behind a desk working with the homeless population, and I've been there ever since. That was late 70s.
How long were you homeless for?
Not long. I lived in my van um, probably about 6 months, 8 months, something like that.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy life of my thing, searching places. I actually bought a motorcycle so people wouldn't see my van because it was bright orange.
Oh, so you would just live in your van and then go drive around
I
with the
bought a
bike.
small motorcycle and actually given a small motorcycle for what I paid for it, and I drive that around that way because my daughter, who was a little bit older, my oldest daughter Victoria, she would call me every once in a while when she had a chance to call me and say, "Dad, you got to come and find us. We're over here." But she was 6 years old at that point. No, 8 years old. My other daughter was six. So yeah, it was quite an interesting life, but she was telling me that mom told them to play hide and seek if you seen the orange van to hide. So I couldn't be seen. Because I knew places they could be and everything, but I just didn't know where
Where?
they were. Yeah, uh, that's that's why my one driver now, my new guy Cam, him and his daughter brought back so many old memories. It's like, yeah, I'll tow you to this place myself. Here, let me go get my other truck. um, and now he's got his kid in daycare. He's moving up. He wants to get an apartment now. Before, when I first met him, it's like I'm fine the way I am and everything. But now he's been over and visited me at my house and stuff and interacted with my family. And now he's like, oh, okay, I remember, and so now his goal is to get an apartment. So that's what we're helping him on now.
Did you have any savings for like food and stuff that you were doing, or how were you getting by those 6 months?
Food banks. Um, Didn't really have to panhandle. I mean, things didn't cost as much back then. The KOA campground was still going at that point, and they charged me $8.95 for a primitive camp spot. And they knew that, who I was. Well, at that time, I was just a homeless person in a van. Um, and then that worked out really well until like the last 2 months. And then somebody called child welfare because they thought that a man living in a van with 2 kids wasn't a good idea because I could be bad. I'd still like to find that person. But that promoted everybody to start putting other things. I mean, that's how I got involved with Redwood Community Action Agency. I was actually said, hey, you should try to go get a motel room with these guys. And then I started talking to a woman named Simone Taylor, which is still an angel that seen a lot more in me than I seen on myself. That's for sure. Sent me back to school, become a substance abuse counselor. Made me go to school to become a substance abuse counselor. So, yeah, that's my story. It's not much compared to a lot of these other people.
But it's still your story.
Still my story.
How did you find the Redwood Coast Agency?
Redwood Community Action Agency?
Yeah.
Through law enforcement and child welfare.
As a resource, they kind of pointed you towards them?
Yeah, they basically wanted me to get a motel room, basically, and get out of the van. And I said, well, I'll give it a shot, That worked out. It worked out the best thing that it possibly could have probably happened. Then I started, before that, when we first moved up here, I was a cook. I owned a restaurant called Belly Busters. That's when I first moved up here. I took my life savings and my kids, because I had both of my kids at that point. And I had won custody of them. We moved up here. And that was, I had right on G and 14th in Arcata called Belly Busters, and build your own hamburgers and stuff. That was a real good experience. It lasted for a couple years. And then she took off with the kids and I lost it again.
It's scary how easily your life can be turned upside down, and by no fault of your own.
People just don't understand that. Divorce is a two-way thing. I'm sure I did a lot of things that wasn't supposed to happen either. Back then we dabbled in drugs. I'm not going to say I was an angel. I did my share of coke and meth and stuff like that. Never heroin. I never really seen the need for downers. Who wants to be down, But some people do. But yeah, I haven't talked about my history in quite a while.
Yeah, was she doing drugs as well?
Yeah, we were both doing drugs together.
So it wasn't like she was taking the kids to try to take them to a better situation.
No.
She was just
we were
burning
both
you a
doing
little
drugs,
bit.
and she hooked up with my best friend, and basically I was expendable. Okay.
Those are like the two worst things that can happen, is your kids are taken from you and your wife is cheating on you.
Yeah.
And then you're homeless now.
Yeah. And you lost your job.
And you lost your
yeah,
job.
It's like getting crushed. Yeah.
And you go from being a small business owner to being homeless.
Yeah.
But look at you now.
And back down in Southern California in Southgate, I was a metallurgist. So I studied metal for the aerospace industry at a very young age. I made back then $45,000-$50,000 a year was really good money.
A lot of money, yeah.
That was good money back in the 70s. And I gave that up just to get away from, after I got my kids back after she took off the first time. I had to fight with attorneys and stuff to get my kids back. As soon as I got my kids back, I moved. And we came up here to Humboldt County.
What were you thinking those first few weeks? Were you just because I'm thinking if I was in your place, I don't know how I would have been able to pull myself back.
Which part?
When you find out and you realize the first day that you're now homeless, that you don't have your kids.
I sat on the curb and cried. flat out, I remember that. I sat there and said, "What the hell do I do? I got no food. They just gave me my last check, so I do have money on me, but I have to go to the bank to cash it. I have no place to go. I can't see my kids. I was told I'm not allowed to see my kids, because back then in the 70s, also, whatever a woman said was right.
Which the 70s, I'm sure it was way worse, but that is still a legitimate concern today.
Yeah, but back then it was like it
Way
doesn't
worse.
matter what they say or what they're doing. They can look with zits all over their face and scratching like this, and you're a good mom. I remember when through the whole process of starting to work at Redwood Community Action, I had one child and she had one child. And that's what the court decided was okay because my oldest daughter wanted to come live with me, and the youngest one wanted to stay with mom, which was fine. But I had to pay child support and she didn't. So I went to court. I actually filed an appeal and went to court and said, well, we each have a kid, so can we just stop this? Because I'm disabled right now and I don't have the money and you're taking out money that could. The judge looked at me and said, well, why are you punishing your daughter? Give her back to the mother. And I said, well, thank you very much, Your Honor. Grabbed my daughter and we walked out. And I dealt with it. I actually had a judge say that. He's passed away now, Morrison, but that's okay.
It's a broken system when it comes to children and divorces, especially.
Yeah, it is. I'm raising my granddaughter right now. My wife's daughter gave birth and then took off, and she's pretty much like any of these other people I'm working with right now. And she's in Reading or someplace like that. And hasn't seen her daughter for probably 7 years. She just turned 10.
Do you attribute your ability to come back, do you attribute that to your kids?
Yeah.
To having something to fight for?
They were my higher power. I do believe in God, but I just don't push it. And I will tell everybody my highest power is my kids. Without them, I probably wouldn't have made it back. But my fight to see them again, my fight to be in their life again, nobody was going to take that away from me. And I made sure it didn't happen.
And look at you now.
Yeah, I'm okay. I got to get better.
That is a good thing to say because we can all get better. But
Every
I mean,
day.
you set the example for, hey, this thing happened to you, and it's rough right now, but you can get back. There's always a way back. You just have to fight for it. And some fights are going to be harder than others, but you can make your way back.
How bad do you want it? Do you have that higher power? Do you have a reason to do this? If you sit there and look at me and go, I have no reason to get sober or want to work or anything, well, there's not much I can do for you then. But if you like, well, I'd like to see my daughter again and maybe live inside a house again. Well, damn it, we can do that. Let's put it to work.
Do you notice that with the guys that successfully move on from being homeless or join your crew, they're the ones that have something to fight for?
Yeah, once again, it goes back to that 80% kind of thing. 20% just are tired of being down and just want something else to do and having faith or trust in something to try to do something. 80%, yeah. They pretty much want to get something back. They want to reunite with their family. They'd like to see their kid again, but they'd like their kid to see him a lot better than the last time they seen him. And I said, well, let's do that. Then maybe we get you a bus ticket, you go visit them. But let's establish the relationship again. Let's make phone calls. I always buy my guys a phone. They can get the Obama phones or whatever you want to call them in the little shack things. But, to walk into the store and buy them $100 phone with a card, means something to them. Like, wow, I could actually do FaceTime with them and stuff. And I go, yeah, you can.